Hey there, my name is Henry. I'm a professor of philosophy and religion and a spiritual leader. Please seek professional help when dealing with substance abuse issues. Today is day 36 of a 90-day absolute no alcohol pledge. And right now things are going as planned. I think when you get to this stage, hopefully it's a matter of habit, both of my lifestyle and my brain. I don't think about having alcohol or any other substance that much. I've actually given up caffeine for the most part too, and that was much easier to do, and just because I don't like the side effects. So I've reached a point where it feels really good, and also I'm looking back and saying, well, why was it so hard to just make this decision? Well, I think it is a hard decision because our society is so immersed in alcohol. And we've talked about that, and I'll have more to say on that. But I don't know if I'm quite where I was a couple times ago when I did this 90 days. On day 90, I did not want to ever have alcohol again. What brought me back was other people and their habits. So that's something I'm really thinking a lot about this time. How am I going to deal with that? So how are you going to deal if your wife or husband or girlfriend or boyfriend wants to continue drinking? That makes it really hard when one person is and the other person isn't. That's a real lifestyle difference. And I think one thing is to just not give into peer pressure, not give into relationship pressure, and really identify who you are as a person. Last time we talked about what scientists are telling us about what alcohol does to our brains and why we like it, why we find it compulsive, why we find it addictive, and why people will actually destroy their lives. Even the love of their children. They will just become dysfunctional parents, dysfunctional spouses, dysfunctional partners, and part of that is because it really hijacks the dopamine system in the brain. And we talked about the fact that it looks like the brain is just not engineered for these kinds of chemical highs. And if you look back at evolution, that's something mammals have not done generally. I mean, sometimes monkeys or apes would eat a fruit that had fermented, and sometimes they'd get alcohol, but it was really not a big aspect of their diet. So we just have not evolved for that. So what is the point with spirituality or psychology or religion and trying or just trying to maximize happiness is that we don't need those big spikes of dopamine to achieve happiness in life. And that, I think, is something we really have to look at, because I think the use of alcohol has been really attached to this idea of maximizing happiness as much as possible. And that's part of the problem, is that if you imbibe, if you indulge in alcohol and you do get that spike of happiness, that well-being, that euphoria, why not do it again? Why not do it every day, all day? And that's the problem. Some people try to do that. And if you try to do that, you'll end up not having happiness. It's sort of ironic that this pursuit of happiness with chemicals actually leads in the other direction. And when these addicts are taking their substance of choice, they're actually just alleviating withdrawal symptoms instead of reaching those high spikes again. But then you could say, like for the moderate drinker, say you drink just on the weekends, just once or twice on the weekends, you get that spike, that happiness, that dopamine rush, that brain rush. It's probably much more than just dopamine. Yeah, you experience that happiness, but that's, I think, my overriding point is that over the course of the next day and the day after the next day, you will pay the price for that. There's no free lunch. That big spike comes at the cost of a dip. Where there's the peaks, there's the valleys. And I tend to think of spirituality as a peak experience, but it really isn't. Religion and spirituality is about the peaks and the valleys. It's about the average. It's about the contentment throughout the day, not just those peaks. So we cannot think of the chemically induced peak of happiness and rush as necessarily a spiritual anything. It isn't. That's one thing I have found over the years. It isn't. It's not what we're getting when we socialize. That the buzz is not coming just from the chemical. It's coming from being with friends, meeting new people, enjoying life, enjoying music, enjoying entertainment. It's really not about the alcohol. Again, alcohol gives us nothing in the final analysis. It gives us nothing. And it actually takes away a little. So why in the course of your life have something that takes away a little bit of the value of your life? But people don't see that it takes away a little bit of their life. They focus on the peaks, they focus on the fun, and certainly that is what's advertised, that's what's in pop culture, that's what our culture has said. Even the Bible talks about drinking wine as a pleasant experience. So people don't see that. People focus on just those good times. They forget about the hangover, they forget about feeling tired. They think they sleep well, but they aren't. So people are, I think, drinking out of ignorance, and this would include myself, ignorance of the overall package of what it's doing. Now, you can try to get really professional at drinking and hedonism and the use of substances. And a lot of people in our culture do that. I think of the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s, 90s. It's around us everywhere, the drug culture and the sophisticated drug culture. And in fact, a lot of college graduates tend to drink alcohol more than people who actually go out in the workforce after high school. So there's this idea that it's sophisticated and fun to do, and that we can sort of maximize the happiness that we get from hedonism. Hedonism I would define as a lifestyle based upon the lower physical pleasures, food, sex, and drugs, and focusing on those at a very basic level. So not sex as really loving in a relationship, just sex as a physical thing, and feeling happy not from the efforts at doing something physical, creating something, but just taking a substance. In that hedonistic lifestyle, I think we participate again as moderate drinkers, as light drinkers. We sort of say, well, I'll do a little bit of that, or a moderate amount of that, but I won't go whole hog into being a hedonist. But the same thing applies. If you are a strong hedonist, you're going to have strong side effects. If you're moderate, you're going to have moderate. If you're little, you're little. So there's no way of getting away from the negatives. And ironically, the hedonistic lifestyle sort of becomes often a suicidal lifestyle. You can think of people in the news, Hollywood actors, people in your own life, there's plenty around, who are hedonists, who focus on the bottle, as if you're going to find happiness in the bottom of a bottle. You're not. If you're not going to find your answers in a bottle, it's actually a very temporary high feeling, and so you're not going to find your answers. And in fact, a lot of these people who pursue this lifestyle of party drugs, club drugs, ecstasy, alcohol, sexual promiscuity, that lifestyle feels very good in a physical, immediate sense, and people think they're getting something out of it. But actually that lifestyle very frequently ends in destroyed lives. It ends in visits to treatment centers for weeks and months, and it really messes up your brain chemistry. And then you can't just enjoy the natural pleasures of life. You can't fill your day with those natural pleasures. And so even more, now you want the hedonism just to sort of get you back to what a normal average person can experience in life. You don't need alcohol for any reason, and the whole idea of the hedonistic lifestyle has to be limited. And the Hindu religion is very good at that. It accepts pleasure as one of the wants of life, but that's just the first basic one. There's many more beyond that, ultimately ending in a spiritual insight as an important one. At the highest level, union with Brahman. So they recognize, that feeling good feels good. But the hedonistic lifestyle is really not an end in itself. If you try to make it work, I just don't see it as a viable way of making life work. People who are hedonists tend to be terrible people to be partnered with because they're focused on their own pleasure. And if you give them pleasure, they will, quote, love you. But they only love you for the pleasure they're getting because that's what they focus on. They focus on the physical pleasures, food, sex, and drugs, the physical pleasures, and to the detriment of many other things, including you as a person they supposedly love. So hedonism is not good for a real relational philosophy, a relational spirituality, where we're focusing on our relationships with other human beings as a key aspect of spirituality. Spirituality has always been about community. Even the monks and nuns who go to the cloister, they're going to the cloister together. There's also an example of monks who are loners who live in a cave. But overall, I would say spirituality is about community, as well as many other things. So hedonism, that focus on food, sex, physical pleasures, the pleasures of the body, is not enough because there's much more to life. There's the appreciation of beauty in nature, a beauty in art, meaning, what is meaningful, the wonder of relationships, the intricacies of knowledge, all this knowledge of the universe. That's not just a physical pleasure. That's something we participate in and can be awed at when we look at the stars, when we look at the moon, when we look at nature. To be focused on those kind of, I guess what you could say is higher pleasures, higher realities, without totally giving up the physical. The physical is only part of it. It's a matter of focus, and focusing on hedonism, I don't think ultimately is going to get us what we think we're going to get out of it.